Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
And that ought to fix it. Hubris. Hubris. That's the word that I put on the thumbnail tonight. And then somebody said, will anyone understand that? And I said, have faith. The Mavericks will rise to the occasion. I'm sure that many of you will know, and those who don't will rise to the challenge. We're going to use that word tonight. We're going to explore that because that has been on display here over the past few nights. It's time to go to school. Money's not everything. And with that in mind, at the end of the broadcast, we'll bring you a final message from Scott Adams, who has passed away. We'll bring you more truth about the Freedom Convoy. We'll hear from a police officer in a clip. Who continues to fight for freedom. A clip sent to me by my friend from afar who said, hey, Mr. Walker, there's still a lot of misfits out there. And here. Today, Donald Trump displayed more hubris, saying the United States doesn't need Canadian cars. They don't need anything from us. Well, he continues talking about taking over Greenland, rattles his sabers in the direction of Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, Mexico. Hubris. What incredible times we live in. New technology, changing landscape geopolitically, new wars, same old story. Be careful. Don't fly too close to the sun. Hubris. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow it may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
We're back. So today, Donald Trump was in Detroit, the Motor City. So what else are you going to talk about? Cars, right? The auto industry. He says the United States doesn't need any cars from Canada. Of course, the objective being to impose tariffs on Canada, force companies to move to the United States by making Canadian products too expensive for consumers in the United States. And because the market there is much bigger, the idea is that factories will relocate there to preserve their access in to the larger market, the richest market in the world. And take the jobs with them. May not work out quite the way he's thinking, but who knows? I mean, he's quite the intellect, isn't he? Today, speaking at the Detroit Economic Club, he talked about electric cars and propulsion. Propulsion. He doesn't care what kind of energy you use. He wants vehicles that use a variety of means of propulsion. Here he is.
And we can't get the fake news to write about it. It's the biggest thing to happen in medicine. It's the biggest thing to happen in healthcare. And I cannot get the New York Times. I cannot get anybody to write about it.
But we'll get to it.
When we got it done and we announced it, it was on a page way in the back of the New York Times. Same with others. They don't want to talk about it. You know why? Because it's so good. It's the biggest thing to happen. Over the past 12 months, almost every promise I made to you right here in 2024 has been kept. I've kept all my promises and much more. I mean, I've given you much more than I gave you promises, and I produced much more than I said I was going to produce. I gave you the largest tax cuts in American history, cutting taxes across the board in the great, big, beautiful bill. And as I told you, I mean, who would have gotten you no tax on tips, as I said before? No tax, I say it over and over again, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security for our seniors. Any senior should be voting for us because the Democrats won't do this. It doesn't work for them. And we also made interest on car loans fully tax deductible, so that when you go out and buy a car, if you have a mortgage or you get a loan on a car, you're allowed to deduct interest for the first time ever. That's never happened before. But only for cars that are stamped with the beautiful words, made in the USA. In other words, we're only letting that take place if the car is made like in Detroit or in the USA. Our tax cuts also provided 100% bonus depreciation on all new equipment and capital investments, meaning that for any manufacturer looking to bring production back to America, you can write it all off, everything, not in 38 years, not in 44 years, in 1 year. You write the whole thing off in 1 year. That's the biggest thing. I think that's the biggest thing. That's the big job producer. And I've cut an unprecedented number of burdensome regulations. We're number one in the history of our country in cutting regulations. I promised to cut 10 old regulations for every one new regulation. So if we put on a regulation, the only way I'll allow it to happen is if the secretary, like Scott Bessent, cuts 10 old regulations. But instead, last year we actually cut 129 regulations for every one that we put in. Think of that. So nobody's ever cut regulations like I have. I terminated the insane electric vehicle mandate and ended the war on internal combustion engines. Once and for all, those engines were gone. And some people like them. And if they like them, great. And if they like electric, if they like any form of propulsion, any way you want to propel your car is okay, except for a couple of them, as I discussed. I permanently stopped Joe Biden's ridiculous CAFE standards. You know what the CAFE standards are? Their standards that make it impossible for you to build a car affordably. They make it impossible for a car to really work right. The CAFE standards sound so nice. The CAFE standards, it's environmental standards that are impossible to meet.
That's not true.
And we're canceling the EPA's absurd tailpipe emission standard, one of the worst ever. And I revoked the California emissions waiver to stop San Francisco communists from regulating automobiles all over our nation, all over our world. Boy, have I have done so much for the car industry. It's great.
Yeah. CAFE standards, corporate average fuel economy. I hadn't listened to that full clip. I hadn't listened to the whole speech yet today, but yeah, no, they're very possible to meet. Corporate average fuel economy, which means that they apply the standard, like your vehicles are allowed to produce so much pollution, but it's not restricted to one vehicle. You can produce a lot of fuel efficient vehicles, but then on the other end, you could produce a gas guzzler and sell those as well. But in order to sell the gas guzzler and something that pollutes a lot more, you have to produce more of the cars that are fuel efficient and sell those too. And they've been doing that for decades now. CAFE, corporate average fuel economy. It averages across all of the vehicles so that they get a quota, basically, of how much pollution they can produce. And then there's a tax breakdown that applies depending on what levels of emissions the vehicles produce overall on average. So that's the way that works. But that's complicated, and it's easier to sell people something simplistic, which is to just sit there and say it doesn't work. Not to say that there isn't always room for improvement and people are going to whine and complain about things, but no, that's nothing new. That was in place when he was president the last time. So keep that in mind. And hopefully that gives you a little perspective, because he's complaining about something that was happening while he was during Trump 1.0 and well before that. Now also he visited a Ford plant in Michigan today. And while there, he took it all a step further and said that the United States, Mexico, Canada trade agreement is somewhat irrelevant. And he's kind of just throwing it out the window, dismissing it, saying that, again, the U.S. does not need any Canadian cars. So this, of course, is a huge concern for Canada, for Ontario, where the auto industry has been one of the main engines that has been driving the Ontario and even the Canadian economy now for, well, many, many decades, a century or more.
I don't even think about USMCA. I mean, I want to see Canada and Mexico do well, but the problem is we don't need their product. We don't need cars made in Canada. We don't need cars made in Mexico. We want to make them here. And that's what's happening. Everybody's moving here. From Canada, they're coming here. From Mexico, from Japan, from Germany, from all over the world, they're coming here. They're opening up their plants.
It's my understanding that Ford plant is actually doing well in Michigan, and they have announced, I think as part of him being there, or at least it's getting more attention today, that they're adding a third shift on the assembly line there. And so there are a number of plants that have 3 shifts, and that's actually an innovation, by the way, in assembly line production that was first introduced, I'm pretty sure, at the Chrysler plant in Windsor, Ontario. That was, I think, back in the 1990s. I think that was the first plant to do it. I could be wrong. This is just off the top of my head. The Chrysler minivan plant at that time, because demand was so high, they did that so they didn't have to build at the time a new factory. And they worked out the whole, all the logistics issues so they could keep parts rolling in and basically keep that plant running 24/7. And that's what they were doing. And so now they do it at a lot of plants. So a little Canadian history there for you. If it wasn't the first, it was one of the very first to do it. But, Trump, He says he's the president of peace, says the economy is doing this, says the economy is doing that. But we know he makes up a lot of numbers. And as you just saw there, he's more often making errors, slurring his speech, screwing things up. So that's becoming kind of a spectacle at times, as it did today. We're going to come back to that too. But first, let's take a look at something that Trump is commenting on tonight. This video is going video out of Tehran and showing massive protests in the streets there still. And yesterday we saw Trump posting on Truth Social saying any country caught trading with Iran will be slapped with a 25% tariff. So that's his weapon of choice, a tool of coercion. Well over 500, I think almost 600 people killed in the streets there as the government tries to restore order and retain control of the country. And they're saying that the United States and Israel have been taking steps to really make these protests happen. Essentially accusing the U.S. and Israel of creating a color revolution. And there is probably some merit to that because that's the playbook. Trump commenting on it today at the airport with his white USA hat on instead of a red MAGA beak. And here he's saying basically they're going to look at the whole situation going on in Iran. And for some reason, this clip is captioned, Minnesota can wait, Iran first. I don't think that'll sit well with the MAGA types.
We had a wonderful speech in front of great people in Detroit, and mostly in the car business, and we're setting records in manufacturing. It's going very well. I think people appreciated what I had to say in terms of the numbers. So we're very happy about that. I'm going back to the White House now. We're going to look at the whole situation that's going on in Iran. It's really bad stuff. And Minnesota is going to have to take care of itself for a little while. We have tremendous theft and fraud going on in that state because you have an incompetent governor, grossly incompetent governor, and a corrupt governor. But we'll straighten that out. But Iran is on my mind when I see the kind of death that is happening over there, we think. So we're going to get some accurate numbers. I'll have it in about 20 minutes. We'll get some accurate numbers as to what's happening with regard to the killing. The killing looks like it's significant, but we don't know yet for certain. I'll know within 20 minutes. So, and we'll act accordingly.
So Minnesota's going to have to take care of itself for a while. Oh, that brings something to mind here. Somebody said this week, you're responsible for your own damn safety. I don't know how safe the people of Minnesota feel on the streets right now. But I guess it's their responsibility. Let's take a little break. We'll come back. I've got a lot more tonight. We'll talk hubris. Did you not see some? We'll show you more on the other side.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
we'll come back to Trump. I mean, he just dominates the news every day, but he has a team, to kind of take things next level so they can keep flooding the zone. The whole world is dramatically changed even just within a matter of days. The situation in Venezuela, concerns about Cuba, the government there pushing back, saying, they're not going to bend the knee to anybody, setting up conflict. Greenland. He wants to take over Greenland. Am I living through this? A NATO member, an ally of the United States, been there. What did he say yesterday or the day before? They can't just keep it just because a boat landed there 500 years ago. And I hear, rightly so, the late night talk show hosts saying, excuse me, how do you think the United States was created? Yeah, that's right. Donald, did you ever hear of the Mayflower? Christopher Columbus, 1492. Hubris. NATO. Is it flying apart? Seems so. Seems like it's almost like the plan, right? But he's saying he saved NATO. He's convincing these countries all the NATO countries, to increase military spending, jacking it up from, an average of 2.5% to 5% or more. And it's pretty clear that it's fracturing, and Europe is going to be left on its own to a great degree, probably because the United States is pulling back. America first, America only. But some people aren't losing hope. The NATO chief says NATO is not in crisis, even though Trump is literally threatening to seize a NATO member's territory, Greenland. Is Rubio there today? No, I think he's in Greenland, I think tomorrow, to meet with government officials. And I know that they want to meet with him rather than J.D. Vance, because he's a little more mature, I think a lot smarter. And I think that maybe he might prevent a military invasion, but maybe not. And I'll show you why later. But anyway, the NATO chief is saying, oh, no, NATO is not in crisis at all. Mark Rutte. I hope he's right, lest we get more conflict.
A larger internal crisis that NATO has faced than the one the alliance is facing now, with Donald Trump saying we should go to Greenland and, take it. Or do you even see that as an internal crisis? Or is it not a crisis at all? And is the best way of communicating with Mr. Trump and trying to maybe smooth the relationship is the way that you have been using communication so far, which was basically flooding him with compliments and calling him daddy? Thank you.
Yeah, let me start with challenge you a bit on the second part of your question. What I always do is, when people are helpful for the alliance and are doing good stuff, and I believe that Donald Trump is doing the right things for NATO, by encouraging us all to spend more, to equalize this, what the US is spending. We had a very successful summit in The Hague, where we decided on the 5% defense spending, including 3.5% on core defense. I'm absolutely convinced without Donald Trump, we would never have had that result at the summit in The Hague. Not well, at least. And therefore, that's my role, and I think we will get there. No, not at all, and I think we are really working in the right direction here.
Yeah, probably not. Why would he say that? Because Donald Trump has become a tyrant, an authoritarian. Everybody's afraid of him. Oh, they don't respect him. What else are you going to do? The most powerful country in the world with the largest military, nuclear weapons. Everybody relies on them because they were allowed to take that position after World War II, and they've grown into this massive force that the world must bend the knee to, largely. And so Ruta is there. What's he going to say? No, it's breaking apart. We're screwed now. Well, he says that, and Godzilla goes out there and starts stomping on things, starts breaking toys. So you don't want Godzilla throwing a temper tantrum. You need time. And you hope that things get better, and maybe you ride this storm out. Not just Ruta, it's everywhere. Pierre Poilievre. Yesterday, I watched his statement on Venezuela and Maduro. Now, he might mean actually what he's saying. I don't have the clip queued up, but Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party in Canada, for our U.S. viewers and others around the world who maybe are not aware, Poilievre says, that the removal, the capture of Maduro is a good thing. Those are his words. It's a good thing because Canada did not recognize Maduro as the legitimate leader of Venezuela. And this is an opportunity for the Venezuelan people to move forward and live in a free country, a democracy. And yet, I don't know that that's even possible, with Donald Trump yesterday posting a picture of himself as the acting president of Venezuela. I don't remember him being elected, and I don't remember him even having Venezuelan citizenship, and I'm not sure what the Venezuelan Constitution has to say about that. My guess is he might not qualify if there were an election. I don't think he would necessarily be allowed to run, but he has self-declared for the position. And it's on Wikipedia because he is reshaping our reality in our minds. If you believe it, if you accept it, then it is so. How do you fight back? You say he's not the president of Venezuela. Don't get me wrong. I am in no way happy or I'm not defending Maduro. There is evidence to suggest that he stole an election, but I wasn't there. And I'll say this: how dare I judge, given what has been going on in the United States? J6 allegations of rigging elections. The allegations coming from both sides. And I'll say this: after what I've seen, editorializing, this is my opinion. If anybody's rigging anything, it's Donald Trump. And because he complains the loudest. And because of other things, including what happened during the pandemic. As I've been highlighting, I didn't want to believe it either. But the facts are the facts are the facts are the facts are the facts. And those facts are that Donald Trump was in the White House when it all went down. Donald Trump could have, with the stroke of a Sharpie, prevented the lockdowns, the mandates. Donald Trump had the power and didn't use it for that. He told us we had our freedom. You can make your choice. But just like in Canada, there were mandates in place in so many places in the U.S. It varied from state to state, as it did, in Canada too, and even from city to city in some cases. But it was Trump who really held the power, because you know why? He said it himself. These countries, they do what I tell them to do. He said that specifically about Canada. Canada does what I tell them to do. And that's what was going on during the pandemic. No excuses being made for our Canadian politicians. They didn't have the backbone or the spine to stand up to it. But you talk about globalist influence or globalist control, an assault on Canadian sovereignty, that exposed the vulnerabilities and even the vassal state status of Canada during the pandemic, because Canada was forced to comply and fall in line with U.S. policy, not just what was going on in China. And isn't it interesting that for the first time in my lifetime, I saw the United States falling into line with what was going on in China? Even while Trump sat there and pointed his finger at the Chinese and said, virus, China, 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 China. But then when we heard in, congressional hearings and questions of Dr. Fauci from Rand Paul, asking questions about the Wuhan lab and U.S. involvement, U.S. funding, and the lies that were flowing around all of that. And Trump says, well, we know it came from the Wuhan lab now, and it's all China's fault. Oh, but wasn't the U.S. involved in that? And doesn't he know? And, who was behind Operation Warp Speed? It was, the man in the White House. It was his whole plan. He wanted he wanted the pharmaceutical companies, if you remember, going into the re-election campaign, he so wanted them to say that he was the one responsible, that he paved the way for the approval of it, and they didn't want to give him the credit. And he made a big deal out of it. He wanted it because he was the guy behind Operation Warp Speed. He said, caution to the wind. Don't worry about adequate testing. We're just going to change the rules. He rigged the system so they could fast track approval of a virus. Oh, and how did he do that? By cutting regulations. How many did he just say they cut for the auto industry? Deregulation. I've largely been in favor of deregulation. I liked what I saw him doing during Trump 1.0 because that's cutting red tape and making it easier for companies to do business, increase efficiencies, and get rid of superfluous laws and regulations and taxes that hinder production, hinder efficiency, restrict job growth, things that are bad for people. But there's a limit. Sometimes you need regulations to protect people. You need to test things adequately to make sure that cars don't explode. Trump today talking about hydrogen vehicles. Also, ignorant, not really knowing anything at all about hydrogen vehicles, but saying they blow up because he's an idiot, doesn't know anything about them. Saying 1 in 100 hydrogen cars blow up and they find the bodies 300 meters away. That's a quote. So he's not in favor of hydrogen cars. I digress. I will take you on a sidebar here, and I'll say that hydrogen is actually is a safer fuel in many respects than even maybe gasoline. And when people think that hydrogen blows up because they remember the Hindenburg disaster, a hydrogen-filled airship. The truth of that is, most of the fire was the outer shell of the airship when it crashed. And the hydrogen, lighter than air, floated up into the atmosphere as it broke through the skin of the airship, which was melting off, and it didn't blow up. Some of it caught fire, but most of it floated up into the atmosphere. What he also doesn't know is that hydrogen vehicles are a form of a EV, because it's used basically two ways to do it. You can just power the vehicles with hydrogen. Most of the vehicles developed burn hydrogen for a generator that produces electricity. So it's another form of EV, electric vehicle. Anyway, back to what I'm saying. It's okay to cut regulations to a degree, but you need some rules. You need rules to make sure there's enough competition in the marketplace. You need rules to make sure that companies don't just start taking PCBs and dumping them in your drinking water, giving everyone cancer. You need to have penalties for those sorts of things. Sorry, But it's not okay to dump toxic waste in someone's drinking water supply just so they can increase profits. You can be concerned about the environment and not be an environmental wacko. You need regulations in place to make sure that drugs are properly tested to prevent people from getting sick and even dying. But he wanted that vaccine so badly because he had to keep the economy rocking and rolling, and he wanted to be a hero. Father of the vax. He thought everyone would embrace it and love it. He was going to save America and save the world. Yeah, save us. He was going to be our savior, and that was going to be his re-election ticket. Didn't quite work out. Pharmaceutical companies were like he got it approved eventually, but they wouldn't give him credit. You go back, you look at his speeches. He was frustrated. So when I see what's going on around the world, yeah, the politicians in each country, they have a degree of blame that should be attributed to them. They're not blameless. They should be held accountable because they didn't stand up. But every country was in lockstep. Who was leading? Trump. Here in Canada, our politicians let us down. They didn't stand up to the man. Talking about mandates for truckers. Yeah, the mandates were actually on the U.S. side, so you couldn't travel into the United States. So there's an uncomfortable little reality check for you, right? You can protest in Ottawa all you want, but you're protesting really a U.S. policy that kind of prevents you from traveling back and forth across the border. So even if they dropped him on this side, the U.S. rules still applied, and that, became a two-way deal. And I've got something else to show you in a little bit regarding that too. But first, we're going to go to this video sent to me so I can share it with you from my friend from afar. Let's see if I can find it here. I had it queued up. There it is. So this is former senior constable Craig Backman. He left police force in Victoria because he decided that the police service he was working for was no longer serving the best interests of the public. And it says at the bottom of this video, share far and wide. So tonight, we're going to give voice to this former police officer. And I think you'll all relate, Maverick Misfits, to what he has to say.
And up until recently, I was a very proud senior constable of police. I just want to say to every one of you here, who obviously can see the bigger picture about what's going on here, this is not just about a jab or no jab. And the ridicule that you have all faced in the media, from the government, to see through that crap and to still be here and still be strong and fighting this good fight, you people are the ones who are going to be remembered as the heroes of this country. You people. I thank you. I thank you on behalf of my family, of my children who you're all fighting for, and I thank you on behalf of these police officers who you're also fighting for. Today is not bad. The louder you speak, the more often you speak, I think they will start to get it. And I came out against all this cho nonsense, and that's what it is, absolute nonsense. And my colleagues, my former colleagues back here, they know this. They know it's nonsense. came out because I could see the divide that was coming, the divide that was caused.
It does not want this. No.
And it was caused because I could see my colleagues who were trapped by a paycheck following unjust orders. I saw the community calling for violence against them, and it was breaking my heart, because I know that every single one of these people is a saint at heart and wants to help the community. I know that.
Join us.
Now, I signed up to be a police officer because I wanted to be part of the thin blue line. And I've heard some nonsense stories, even from the leadership of the police force, saying that that's about white supremacy. Whoever says that is a goddamn idiot. The thin blue line is a layer of protection that is there to protect the good, hard-working, decent citizens of Victoria from those who seek to do them harm. Now, what I am seeing, and what many have seen, but many have yet to grasp, is that those that seek to do them harm are in that building. Now, I would challenge every one of my former colleagues, I speak to you directly. You know that this is nonsense. You know that the last 2 years has been nonsense. I don't expect any of you to do what I have done. I understand the risk is great. There's much to risk. I understand that.
Stand down.
But you've got to start to talk to each other. Start to realise the bigger picture. This is not about a jab or no jab. It's about the freedom. It's about democracy. So far, even though I know most of you don't agree with the show directions and all these restrictions on people's lives that have happened so far, I know you don't agree with it, but all you've shown so far, instead of showing loyalty to the people, you've shown loyalty to a paycheck. You haven't even been able to show loyalty to your co-workers, some of which have been in the force for 30 years, who've done your engines to thrown out. You haven't been able to stand up for them. To understand that you are in the unique position of being able to create history. Now, this is a dictatorship that's trying to be ushered into Victoria, and then it's going to be ushered into the rest of Australia. And the world is watching, and they're watching for good reason. They're watching because what's happening here is absolutely ridiculous. And we are a laughing stock. You get to make a decision. You get to make a decision as to whether or not you want to go down in history as the private army of a madman who's going to resolve this nonsense. You can either go down that path and be known for that in history, or you can be known as history as the people's protectors that stood up and prevented this tyranny from happening. Understand that what happens to us happens to us all. When you take that uniform off at night, you won't be the oppressor anymore, you will become the oppressed just like us. Realise that this is a fight for the freedom of our future, of everyone's future, and for our children. What happens from here is in your hands. You can change history. You do it right here today to start making amends to these people who are here fighting for you. I thank you for your time. I'm with you all the way.
So that is a little blast from the past, I think. I don't think that is actually a new speech, but serves to segue into other things we're going to talk about right now, which is the Freedom Convoy. And it's not just infighting that we are seeing right now between, say, Pat King and Tamara Litch and Chris Barber and others. Pat King with the money man, the accountant from the Freedom Convoy, making a couple of videos in the last couple of weeks, which I've been following and bringing some fairly important information forward, actually, about what was going on with the money and revealing something that was very surprising to me. I did mention this, why bank accounts were initially frozen. A lot of people point the finger at Mark Carney. In fact, I think even our friend Rudy Bruce has been posting some sort of a graphic up in the last day pointing the finger directly at Mark Carney. And again, no excuses for those politicians who let us down. Now, at the time, during the Freedom Convoy, of course, he wasn't prime minister, but he did write an open letter to the National Post, I believe. And in that thing that Rudy Bruce posted, and he's not alone in this, he blames Mark Carney for locking down the bank accounts. Let me see if I can find what I need. Right there, and it should be right there. Okay. Do I have it? Maybe I don't. Maybe I lost it. I'm going to read you this letter as soon as I find it again. I'll bring it up here. I need to find a version, though, that I can see the entire thing. He said this was on February 7th, 2022. It's time to end the sedition in Ottawa by enforcing the law and following the money. And, I say more than one thing can be true at the same time. See if I can find, I've got the article. Where did it go? I'll bring it back up. I've got it. The perspective on this, like hindsight is 2020, right? Because you have more information. So let me get this for you. I think we've got it here. Okay, coming up. Yeah, former Bank of Canada governor. He wrote this February 7th, 2022, titled, "It's time to end the sedition in Ottawa by enforcing the law and following the money." So because he's written this, a lot of people say it's because of what he wrote that the federal government locked down bank accounts. So the article was strongly critical of the Freedom Convoy. And I'll go down a limb here and say what I've been saying. Most of the people who went, purest of intentions. At the center of it, there were a number of different groups with various objectives. Some of them did want to overthrow the government. So when Carney is using the word sedition, even when Jagmeet Singh was saying that there were people who had that objective, it's true. And you can find the evidence to support that in the public order the inquiry, POAC, into the convoy afterward, whether the invocation of the Emergencies Act was justified. And we broadcast that every single day, start to finish, front to back, bumper to bumper, for you when that happened. So I watched the whole thing. there's a ton of material, documents available online at the POEC website. And I've been digging into some of that over the past, years. So police documents, all kinds of stuff. This is what Carney wrote at the time. He says, in our capital city, many people have been terrorized for more than a week. Women fleeing abuse have been harassed. Many elderly have been too afraid to venture outside their homes for groceries. Families have been deprived of sleep for days on end by the constant barrage of 100 decibel noise. Control over the city's downtown core, which includes the parliamentary precinct, was ceded by the police and taken over by what the chair of the Police Services Board describes as an insurrection. Canadians can be forgiven if they thought this would never happen in Ottawa. The goals of the leadership of the so-called Freedom Convoy were clear from the start: to remove power from the government that Canadians elected less than 6 months ago. Their blatant treachery was dismissed as comic, which meant many didn't take them seriously as they should have. Certainly not our public safety authorities, whose negotiations facilitated the convoy's entry into the heart of our capital and have watched as its dangerous infrastructure has been steadily reinforced, a policy of engagement that has amounted to a reality of appeasement. On the first weekend, many Canadians who joined the demonstrations undoubtedly had peaceful objectives. And I'm reading this so that you hear the whole letter, instead of just hearing that there was a letter written and then having someone tell you what was in it, and assess it for you, evaluate it, and then tell you what it meant and what it did and what the consequences of that were. You can now, I'm going to share this with you so that you get this thing in its entirety, so you have all the information, and then we can assess together. Tired as we all are with unprecedented disruptions that we've all endured over the past 2 years, it's understandable that many would want to come to Ottawa to protest. Yep. It's a free country. Kinda. Or was, and everyone should be able to express their opinions free of interference from the state. Okay, bravo. Just as the press should be able to report without fear of harassment or intimidation. Thank you. But now in its second week, no one should have any doubt. This is sedition. That's a word I never thought I'd use in Canada. It means incitement of resistance to or insurrection against lawful authority. On Sunday, authorities began to draw the line, declaring a state of emergency was the right thing to do. From now on, those who are occupying the downtown of our country's capital should be in no doubt. They are no longer simply advocating a different strategy to end COVID-19. They are not patriots, and we're going to come back to that. They are not patriots. Remember that word, patriots. This is not about restoring freedom, but beginning anarchy. This isn't getting carried away at a rally. It's not a rush of blood to the head. It's deliberate and calculated, and because of that, they must know that from now on there will be consequences for their actions. The police had been reluctant to enforce the most basic bylaws, but these infractions, the constant blaring of horns at all hours, the harassment of people, the culture of fear, have been making residents' lives hell. Will bankrupt our businesses, and if left unchecked, would help achieve the convoy's goal of undermining our democracy and the rule of law. Those who are still helping to extend this occupation must be identified and punished to the full force of the law. Remember we talked to Rudy Bruce about who was really to blame and what some of these people actually wanted, which was a photo op? Encouraging people to stay even when it was very clear that they were going to be beaten in the streets and probably charged, taken to jail. Certain people asked people to stay, and then they themselves left. And I thought at the time, this looks a lot like a color revolution. Could that be happening in Canada? Keep in mind what's going on in Iran right now, and Donald Trump and the 51st state rhetoric. But let me continue. Drawing the line means choking off the money that financed this occupation. Yep. Okay. So there it is. That's the line. Again, many Canadians who were amongst the initial donors were likely well-meaning. Perhaps they were unaware of the convoy's stated objectives, or, like many in positions of authority in Ottawa, they didn't take them seriously. Perhaps all they wanted was a new COVID-19 policy with fewer restrictions. Kind of where I was at. But by now, anyone sending money to the convoy should be in no doubt. You are funding sedition. In other words, be careful who you donate to, especially if you don't know who they are. And what have we seen in recent weeks, recent months even? We've drawn attention to some of those issues. Who was controlling the money and why? And what are they doing now? Those same people who somehow got pushed out into the front of the convoy with a net to catch all the money. And who was behind them? Which lawyers? Let me continue. Foreign funders of an insurrection interfered in our domestic affairs from the start. Domestic affairs. Foreign funders. Where did the money come from? What do we know for a fact? 60% of the money that was flowing into those GoFundMes, Give, Send, Goes, 60% of it U.S. Canadian authorities should take every step within the law to identify and thoroughly punish them. The involvement of foreign governments, and there was more than one, the United States obviously involved. Hello, Major General Paul Vallely. Hello, Norman Traversy. And any officials connected to them should be identified, exposed, and addressed. Who in our government is corrupt? Who was helping those who were engaged in an act of sedition? That's the question being raised here by Mark Carney. I know from experience that crises don't end by themselves. You can't spin your way out of failure. You must recognize the scale of the challenge, devise a clear plan, and then implement it methodically and deliberately. Your determination to do so can never be in doubt. Then and only then can order be restored. In this case, that means enforcing the law and following the money. Individuals must be held responsible for their lawlessness, and those who financed their actions must be dissuaded from ever doing so again. I think he's talking about foreign influence, folks. And I don't think he's talking about China. I think he's talking about somebody maybe a little closer to our home. Our Constitution is based on peace, order, and good government. Indeed, I've been saying that for years. It's not we the people. It's not life, liberty, and the pursuit of freedom or happiness. Sorry. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's U.S. We the people. That's U.S. In Canada, our Constitution is based on peace, order, and good government. It's different. We must live up to the founding principle. This founding principle, in order to protect all our freedoms. Mark Carney was an Ottawa resident at the time, and of course, former Governor of Bank of Canada, and eventually he became, as you know, the Prime Minister. So, of course, those who are at war with liberalism and Canada and the UK and Australia, every Western country, are very critical of Mark Carney. He's a scapegoat. Not to say Trudeau shouldn't be held accountable, but did they really lock those bank accounts down because Mark Carney told them to? Not really. Kinda. Partly. But you can't say it was all because of him. Because the truth is elusive and complicated usually. And that's the case here. But a lie is just a lie. So when you hear people saying they locked all the bank accounts because of Mark Carney, it's just because he's in the Prime Minister's office and he's just the latest liberal that conservatives love to hate, or others, or I should say the fake conservatives who aren't really conservatives anymore at all. They're not. Donald Trump's not a conservative. I'm not even sure Pierre Poilievre is really a conservative. And I said a long time ago that the Conservative Party left me. I didn't leave the Conservative Party. And that was long before any of this ever happened. That's when Maxime Bernier left the Conservative Party, and I had left the Conservative Party prior to that. And I was part of the Conservative Party because I'd left my job in news at the time, so I was free to associate with a political party. Today, I don't endorse anybody. I don't tell people who I voted for, Mr. A-Lot. If I voted at all, it's my business. And it's impolite to ask people who they voted for. Just a little tip on etiquette from someone a little senior in years and a little more experienced. Hubris. Look it up. I know it's a big word. Sometimes people use big words just to make people think they're smart. And they don't even know what they mean. Like you, except you do. My guess is you know the meaning of the word. Just saying. School's in. By the way, did you see the donations that Mr. A-Lot provided to us? I like David A-Lot. That's why I'm here providing a free education to someone who is politically illiterate and devoid of any education regarding history. I think he might be right. You know, where he came from, I think maybe the education system sucks. I think he's right. Because wherever he went to school, big gaps in his knowledge. I'll continue. So where were we? Mark Carney, locked down the bank accounts of people who, what's he really saying in the letter? He's saying foreign funding coming into the country to undermine or destabilize the government because there are people who want to overthrow the government. And he's saying it's not everybody. He's saying that the people who came with the purest of intentions had every right to go out and do what they were doing. But there were people at the center of it who were taking foreign money. And he's saying those people should be held accountable. He's also calling for accountability within the government. He's saying anybody who's guilty of being corrupt because they're taking foreign money or they're under foreign influence, they should be held accountable and rooted out. That's what he's saying in the letter. What the hell is the matter with that? Because I hear people, conservatives and even liberals, but especially people on the conservative side saying exactly that. And I agree. And yet he's taking it on the chin. He's getting all the blame. He wasn't even the prime minister at the time. Read things. Context, perspective. We'll come back to the conservatives. And I'm not a liberal. But I'm fair and I'm balanced. I'm objective, or I try to be as objective and as balanced and fair as I can be. Pat King. Can I find the Pat King clip? I need a little break. We're going to come back. And hopefully, when we come back on the other side, I'll have the clip of Pat King talking with the accountant dude. So give me a moment. I'll get it queued up for you. Here we go.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Brightleaf Innovations is excited to offer our newest investment opportunity, the Turn Easy Bed Storage Solution.
Turns with a touch, spins all the way around. Every little thing you need is easy to be found. No more clutter, no more mess on the floor. Just spin it, reach it, you don't search anymore. Turn Easy Bed, spin your world around. Storage made simple, the best you found. Shelves your way, keep the mess away. Charge it, store it, night or day. Custom shelves for your books or your tech. Cozy space for your treasures to protect. Built-in power when you need to recharge. Smart design that makes your bedroom feel large. Turn Easy Bed, spin your world around. Storage made simple, the best you found. Shelves your way, keep the mess away. Charge it, store it, night or day. Designed and developed by Brightleaf Innovations. Proudly Canadian and patent pending in North America. Turn Easy Bed transforms how you live.
To learn more about this innovative new product idea and exciting investment opportunity, call 519-784-0222 or visit brightleafinnovations.com.
Okay. So just to tee this up, I know. Why are you talking about the Freedom Convoy? It was like years ago, Rick, but this is actually very important because this ties into everything going on today. It really does. As you can probably tell from the information I've just been sharing with you, keeping in mind that what I'm about to show you is information that has, to a degree, been shared out before by certain live streamers, including, what was his name? Roe from the War Campaign. That guy. I spoke to him, I think, once, maybe twice. Anyway, he was trying to put some of this information out. It wasn't very clear, though. It was hard to follow and understand, but he knew he was onto something. And I think he was harassed pretty heavily because of it. And I don't think he live streams anymore, maybe because of threats and so on. A lot of money involved. What, 20 million? Somewhere in that range. Lots of bucks, right? And we know that there's this ongoing dispute. Who started the Freedom Convoy? Ultimately, in a way, it doesn't matter, except that it matters in this regard. The people that were sort of thrust to the front as the heroes of the convoy, the sort of the cartoon caricatures, Tamara Lich and I guess Chris Barber, right? Those two pushed out in front and backed up by these lawyers from the JCCF and then ultimately this Keith Wilson. We know that they ultimately were kind of controlling all the money. They were taking the money in. It was being controlled by this corporation thing that was set up, Freedom Corp. Well, I'm not going to get into all the details or make any allegations here, really, because the information is actually all out there. Pat King, I'm sure you all know who he is, one of the main people involved in the protest and also a figurehead in all of this of sorts. You know, he has been doing a series of these interviews. There's one section in here in particular dealing with the money and why the bank accounts actually got frozen. And I think it's important because, you know, it shows that the people taking the money in didn't really take proper steps to make sure that the bank accounts didn't get frozen. Makes me kind of wonder again, you know, you're talking about lawyers, smart people. Now, Chad Arrows is just a regular dude who was trying to help out. And I think he's done 2 interviews now with Pat King about this. And he said, you know, he tried to tell them, if you don't set these bank accounts up properly, if you don't set up the social media funding platforms properly, if the money isn't handled properly, these things are going to get locked down. You might not want to hear this, but I'm just sharing it with you, and this is all very valid.
A business consultant, and I worked for the top banks in Vancouver, and I did I understood banking, I understood lawsuits. I did work for lawyers for lawsuits and things. I did all sorts of stuff. And Chris would drop by my office in downtown Chilliwack, and he'd sometimes just sit there and visit with me, and because we knew each other. Then, when they said they were having trouble with GoFundMe, he said, "Hey, I know a guy. He could probably help you," and that guy was me. And then I started communicating with Christina and Helen. And then finally on January 30th, I ended up in a group call with Tamara and Jeff Rath, Russell Hebert, and
Separatist.
a lady named Sandra Sable. And I was like, "Okay, lawyers, like Jeff Rath is a lawyer. He's
Separatist.
He's like the leader or one of the leaders of the Alberta separatist movement. Russell Hebert was a MP for the Stephen Harper era." And I just wondered, I'm like, you guys, if this money gets transferred the wrong way, the government or the bank is going to freeze the money. I work for banks. Whenever we get nervous about money, we just freeze it and say, "What the heck is this?" And we either hand it over to the courts or, so I was trying to really get on them about setting up something. And at the end of the call, I still didn't feel satisfied that Tamara or that finance committee got the proper advice. So I hung up the phone and I incorporated a nonprofit organization called Freedom 2022 Human Rights and Freedoms, which people call Freedom Corp. And then I sent an email to these people and I said, "Look, I incorporated this thing," and I put Chris Garrett and me on as provisional directors. Like, a provisional director is just like a placeholder until it's actually really set up for real. And and I said, "Look, I set this up with Chris and I as provisional directors. I put his address as the corporation address because it's in Ontario. If you want to use it, use it. If you don't, then I'll give it to someone else."
Correct.
Yeah. So anyways, that is the origin story of Freedom Corp, which ended up having standing at the POEC hearings on behalf of the truckers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you incorporated Freedom Corp, helped them with the GoFundMe.
Yeah, I was helping them with the GoFundMe, helping them with their responses to the GoFundMe. Yep.
So you've been here's where it's going to get juicy, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody's been asking, where in the hell's the money? What's going on with the money? What this and that? What is Pat, where is it? I have no idea. And
They're
Chad
still asking.
I have nothing to do with this money, ladies and gentlemen. Chad is the chartered accountant I'm not on any paperwork for any of it. But what Chad did do for them was he was involved in meetings with GoFundMe and sat in with meetings to give them answers to their questions, because, ladies and gentlemen, GoFundMe was not putting this money out if it wasn't getting allocated to the destination that they had already set down, that this was going to the truckers. This was not going to go into personal bank accounts. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, I was warning the original finance committee, do not let this go into Tamara Leach's personal bank account. That's a bad idea. Well, they started to get impatient. And so after now I don't want to take any glory for GoFundMe agreeing to release money, because I think Helen and Christina did 99.9999999% of the work. And basically all I did was take their stuff, and I like to say this, I got out my crayons and I made my chart, this is how it's gonna go, whatever, to make it easy for GoFundMe, because I figured they're probably bankers like me and they just want it simple. The more complicated, the worse it is. The simpler it is, the better it is. So I just kind of made this little chart or whatever, and then gave it to the finance committee. Finance committee gave it to Jeff Rath, and he tinkered with it a bit. Then they sent
Jeffrey
it to
Rath. Jeffrey Rath had his hands in on this. That's interesting.
It is.
Carry on,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, he was the original convoy lawyer. Jeff Rath is the original convoy lawyer. Then he pats it off to Keith Wilson. So
Separatists.
So then after I helped a little bit, they released $1 million, and I said, guys, it's not, you didn't agree to send it to Tamara Leach's personal account, did you? And they're like, yeah, we just wanted to get it over with. And I'm like, that's not good.
Yeah, that's not good. They did it anyway. He told them not to do it. He told them what would happen. And those separatist lawyers did it anyway. Why would they do that? Interesting. Kind of like, I mean, no allegations here. Just makes me think of, the media coverage from journalists who have really highlighted people like Mark Carney, our government, just our government, blaming our government for freezing the bank accounts. Those same journalists, some of them of late been running into the middle of crowds to kind of get arrested accidentally on purpose. Why would they do that? These are lawyers. Don't they know better? They should. They should know better without the accountant telling them. They should know better because the accountant told them not to do that. And because he told them anytime anything like that happens, when you have any kind of a big fundraiser, if money starts flowing from something that's set up as like a charity or whatever, or a business, and then it's flowing into, these are donations for an organization, and then it's flowing into someone's personal bank account instead of a business account where there are checks and balances in place to protect, because you have at least some rules and regulations to protect the donors against fraud. And there are automatic mechanisms that kick in to lock down bank accounts when improper things happen, like when, say, $1 million flows from a GoFundMe into a personal bank account. And then what happens? That triggers other scrutiny. And because you have this massive protest, and now you can't tell who's who and what's what, because you've got this massive thing going on, and you've got all this money flowing around, and the government clearly knows that some of this is coming from outside, and then the donor list gets leaked, and you can see clearly who donated, which is really unfortunate in many respects, because people who donated in good faith, they kind of got caught up in that, and in some cases doxxed. Not cool. But the foreign influence is quite apparent in there. And because it's flowing into at least one personal bank account, and then maybe others, I don't know. That's what triggered the lockdowns of the accounts. It wasn't because Mark Carney wrote a letter. It wasn't because the government, with the stroke of a Sharpie, decided to go out and start locking down bank accounts. They did, but it was triggered initially by the automatic mechanisms, the rules, the banking rules to protect people. Rules that people like Donald Trump don't actually like very much, because he's busy selling Trump meme coins and profiting to the tune of $1 billion. Not that that's directly related to this, but it shows you the attitude. And the half-truths that are spun up. See, more than one thing can be true at the same time. And it's important to realize that, because, well, you can't say that the Freedom Convoy was all pure and everybody was innocent and everybody was peaceful and everybody was, just there for good reasons. No, because we know there were some people there who were, at the center of it, there with other motives. And then after that account gets locked down, public attention is focused on it, a lot of media, and the martyrdom begins and the arrests come and more martyrdom. And you listen to that interview with Pat King and Chad Arrows, the accountant, and you'll hear more about people even asking to go to jail. Why would they want to do that? Why would somebody run into a crowd and get accidentally arrested? And why do we have separatists, political activists out west mainly, lawyers, involved in this? And what are they doing now? What were they doing then? Hindsight, a little more clarity there, right? Not saying anybody did anything illegal, but there's some questions there, and that video of Pat King, Chad Arrows, I think is worth watching. And he's done a second one that came out, I think, yesterday, overnight. Here, let me put this link to that video in the chat. You tarnish, or some people tarnish, the efforts, the noble efforts of some with their activity, their indiscretions, their bad judgment maybe, or maybe something else. I'm going to run a longer video now. I sent him a message today because I watched this and it's tied into this. And maybe this will help give you greater perspective or more clarity. This is Phil Primo. Let me share this with you. He says, after having watched one of the videos from Pat King and getting into the second one, he says Pat King owes him both an apology and a thank you. Phil Primo also tied into the freedom movement for a long time, and he is expressing concerns and has been expressing concerns for a long time about the money and the GoFundMe and the way it all was flowing and who was getting what, who was getting support from the JCCF, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, legal support. Some were left to rot in jail with representation and others without.
All right. Good afternoon, folks. Saturday, January the 10th. This is just a short live. It's directed at Pat King. He owes me both a thank you and an apology. An apology for trashing my name not that long ago. And a thank you for basically rooting out everything that he's going over on his channel with Chad Eros and Chris Guerra. Of course, I did that back in 2022. In about June was the first time. It was first done by War Campaign, Row of War Campaign out in Ottawa. And then I took it on. And then I also brought in, what's his name from Line Canada, Daigle. I'm forgetting his first name. But he was well connected with Chris Sky, of course, Kellyanne Wolfe, and Lamont Daigle. Okay. So, I'm just putting this message out there because I want to hear I want to hear an apology and I want to hear a thank you. And I understand Pat's going to do a show on Monday night with, Chad and Chris. Okay. Chris has been on a couple of shows with me. That's Chris Guerra. He was Adopt a Trucker. He's done a few shows with me and others, of course, talking about the fucking clusterfuck that was Chris Barber and Tamara Litch. Okay. There is some new details coming out. I did watch Pat's latest live with Chad Eros. And there were some new details that came out for me, even though I covered this 4 fucking years ago. The reason I want the apology and the thank you, of course, is because I've had my name fucking trashed all over the freedom movement. I was an activist. I was a hardcore activist, 2020 and 2021. And then I was on the bench during the convoy because of everything that went on in 2021. I had charges against me, couldn't go on the convoy, etc., etc. So I worked in the back end, recorded everything, which I still have recorded on t.me/convoy2022, photos and video. Now, Pat's taken 4 fucking years to get around to this point. I understand he was muzzled for a while, this and that and the other thing, but he did promise to do a live stream with me as his first live stream once he was unmuzzled, and he actually rescinded that. He didn't rescind it officially. He didn't say, hey, Phil, I'm not going to do it. He just didn't fucking do it. But he was going to give the first interview to Edmonton Freedom Central. Now he's off basically repeating work that I did 4 years ago, and I want to fucking thank you for it, Pat. I also want an apology. So if I don't fucking get that, of course, you know that I know some details, and I'm not afraid to fucking throw that shit out there, because I've had my fucking name sullied in the mud for a long fucking time. Not only by Chris Barber, but with the assistance of Chris Scott. We're finding out all the lawyers, Eva Chipiuk, Jeff Rath, fucking Keith Wilson, and John Carpe are all pieces of shit. They're supposed to be the COVID lawyers. They haven't fucking finished a goddamn thing on the COVID file. Rath and Chipiuk have 2 class actions open, one for vaccine damage to recipients, and another for a business class action for businesses that were fucking destroyed. Of course, I'm an interested party in that second lawsuit. Neither of those have, they got approval to fucking the class approval, but as far as I understand, they haven't fucking spent a day in court. Now, all of those fucking rat bastard lawyers who fucked over most of the activists, by the way, as you will find out by listening to Pat King's live on Monday, as well as the one that he did, I don't know, last week or the week before with Chad Eros. You'll find out. I republished this, of course, on Prime Gold Media and Edmonton Freedom Central. Haven't been publishing a ton, but I did re-stream that live. And what we're finding out is that these rat bastard lawyers basically fucked over most of the activists and truckers by basically through their actions. Okay, they all got a little piece of the money. Tamara, Chris, the lawyers, they all got a piece of the money, and then the rest of the money got fucking locked up, mainly through their own actions. Okay, which you're going to come to find out as you listen to Chad Eros and Chris Guerra go on at length about this. They've had plenty of time to think about it, and they've had plenty of practice interviews, right? So you're going to hear about that, and now you're seeing all of these same fucking lawyers wrapped up in the independence file, okay? And I think the conclusion that people are going to start coming to, and I don't think this conclusion is going to come out on Pat King's live on Monday, but it's a conclusion that I've come to a long fucking time ago. And this might be the first time I actually verbalize it. But, I've known for a long fucking time that Barber, Litch, and potentially Chris of the Whistle Stop, that they were political operatives, that they'd been politically hijacked. And they did that through guys like Keith Wilson. Keith Wilson was I think, is the main guy that you're going to find out is a political hijacker. They had political parties in there trying to hijack what was a grassroots fucking movement. Okay. I guess where we're at this point in time is that, Pat announced the convoy December 15th of 2021 on Edmonton Freedom Central. But he has basically, tipped his hat to Bridget Belton. Bridget Belton claims that she's the founder of the convoy. They seem to agree on that, and who am I to disagree? But I do know that Pat announced it December 15th of 2021. There was a bunch of shit going on in Edmonton. He announced it on the fucking show on an anti-bullying episode that we did that basically highlighted all of the fucking police bullying that was going on in the fucking city of Edmonton, Grand Prairie, and other places in Alberta. And there was quite a lot of that going on, and that's when Pat announced the convoy. So I always associated the convoy instantiation to Pat. That's where I heard it first. Bridget comes along and says, no, I'm the one that did this. What you're going to find out is that it's everybody but Chris Barber and Tamara fucking Litch. They're both pieces of shit. Big time pieces of shit. You know, I've joked for a long time about Tamara being a hobbit hooker, bring your cover band. That's, this is basically what she's going to be known for. The Go Fucking Fund Me, who basically got everybody's money locked up and everybody put on fucking lists and all of their bank accounts frozen, or many of the bank accounts were frozen. That's what Tamara Lich accomplished. She was in the back end supporting ladies, supposed to be supporting ladies that were on the finance committee of the convoy. Turns out she was unreachable through the whole fucking thing. Had a great big fucking GoFundMe. They dumped money into her fucking personal account, which it never should have went to. Right? And the whole thing turned into a clusterfuck. Everybody got put on lists. That's what she's known for. That and her shitty cover band and her fucking tit job that she got done, I guess after the whole convoy ended. And, she got a truck. She got some new tits. What a piece of shit. These people are pieces of shit. We all put our fucking hearts and souls and dumped our own personal fucking equity and money into this fucking thing. I lost everything, and I've said this quite a few fucking times. $275,000 fucking dollars I lost over everything that happened between 2020 and 2023. I lost everything. I lost not my furniture, of course, because you're seeing it behind me, but I lost everything else. I had 3 fucking vehicles paid for, gone, all 3 of them. I had all kinds of assets gone. I had to sell them to pay for my 2 fucking mortgages because I couldn't get fucking work through all of this shit. And that fucking bitch went out and got a fucking tit job, bought herself a new truck, all this fucking shit, claims to be the hero of the convoy, while that bitch hasn't done a fucking thing for this movement. That's what's going to come out. My words are going to be recognized as a true fucking statement, and this sentiment that I'm putting out there, everybody else is eventually going to take that sentiment when they understand the scope of what these fucking people did. Now, the fact that their lawyers now have jumped onto this fucking independence thing should set off big fucking red flags. So here's my thesis. My thesis is that those lawyers are politically controlled, that the political powers that be on both sides of the border are all in cahoots. They were all fucking implicated in the COVID hoax, the mass poisoning of people with the C-19 mRNA fucking poison. Okay? They're all implicated in that. And the next fucking step is the North American Union. And you got Trump on one side saying he wants to make Canada a 51st state. He's just fucking, deployed a fucking SEAL team to fucking Venezuela to capture the, not Chavez, but the other fucking noodle there. I'm not for that. I'm not for any of it, actually, including I'm not for Trump going in there with the military, but now they're seizing their fucking oil supplies. They're gonna start processing Venezuelan oil, which they don't fucking own, doesn't belong to them. And that's going to fuck us here in Canada. It's going to erode the price of fucking oil, okay, since we only have the one trading partner. And Donald Trump's going to be sitting there with his arms wide open saying, come to Papa, Alberta. So you got these fucking dink lawyers that fucked all of the convoy activists, okay, fucked them over hard, didn't provide them legal support, refused to defend Pat King or anybody associated to Pat King, which made up a bulk of the fucking volunteers on the fucking convoy. Sorry to say, that convoy got massive once it fucking hit Edmonton and Calgary, and that's because of Pat King. It's not because of fucking Tamara Lich, and it's certainly not because of Chris Barber from fucking Weyburn, Saskatchewan. Those 2 fucking shitheads and their fucking lawyers are political operatives, and I bet you what you're going to fucking see is you're going to see they're going to try and get everybody to sign on to this independence referendum, but there's it's already slipped out. With Greenland, they want Greenland to vote to join them. They want Greenland to vote for separation from Denmark, and then America will just take them over. One of their fucking one of the idiots in the White House let that fucking slip, and it went out in a mainstream article. And of course, I picked up on it and said, oh, well, look at this. We got all the fucking lawyers that fucked the convoy. They're supposed to be COVID lawyers, basically working in a conflict of interest because they're working towards separation, and the target of who they want to sue is the Alberta government. So they want to separate from Canada. They want Alberta to separate, and now they're going to sue themselves. Is this the fucking idea? No, it doesn't add up, does it? They're going to get everybody to agree they want to be an independent state just so Donald Trump can fucking come in and invade. Right? That's called poisoning the well. Sovereignty is us being sovereign. It doesn't mean we have a provisional currency that's a U.S. Federal Reserve note. U.S. Federal Reserve is owned by the Zionists. It's a fucking hijacked currency, and ours is too. Not owned by the Zionists directly. It's been hijacked by the politicians since 1973 when Pierre Elliott Trudeau joined the group of seven, the G7 or the G8, whichever it was. His signing a requirement for him to get on the G7 was to basically stop following the Bank of Canada Act. Okay, the Bank of Canada Act had very specific rules that money was to be spent into existence as an asset-based dollar. And it was that way from 1935 to about 1973, 1974. And that's when inflation started. Why? Because they started borrowing money at interest from nothing from private fucking banks. Now, all these separatist cocksuckers that are all these convoy fucking lawyers, these convoy cocksucking lawyers, the guys that didn't fucking defend anybody, the guys the people that they did defend, they lost on all counts. Meanwhile, of course, people that represented themselves found innocence, got off, didn't have the fucking lawfare costs and all that shit. Well, those fucking cocksucker lawyers have all moved to the independence file, and I would say that there's probably a good incentive there for them to get us to fucking go over to provisional currency, which is what their big fucking plan is over at the Alberta Prosperity Project. And keep in mind, Chris Scott, by the way, who says he's, against socialism and all this shit, the guy that got his entire fucking business given to him, basically, paid for by you people. By you people. He's against socialism, though, mind you. But he had his entire business fucking gifted to him through donations, okay, on the back of who? Oh, Adam Skelly, who actually lost his business. Yes, he got donated $300,000, but he's fighting it all the way to the Supreme Court in Canada. His case, which is supposed to be coming up this very soon, very, very fucking soon, has the potential of blowing open the entire COVID hoax in Canada. Follow Jody Ledgerwood for more. I forget the name, cccan.org, something like that. Follow Jody Ledgerwood for more information. Okay? Adam Skelly was the real deal. Chris Scott was a fucking copycat. He got himself a free fucking business on donations because he saw what happened to Adam Skelly, and inadvertently Adam Skelly ended up supporting this cocksucker. Well, who's he in bed with? He's in bed with fucking Rath, Chipiuk, fucking Carpe, the whole fucking lot of them. And they're all working together for separation, but they aren't engaging any of the city's fucking constituents, the non-white people. No, they're framing the whole fucking thing as a white nationalist fucking thing, which is exactly what Trudeau was trying to say the convoy was about. Well, those fucking assholes on the APP file are framing it up as a fucking white nationalist thing. They aren't engaging any of the, hey, what about all the Sikh truck drivers that were there supporting the convoy? Do you have any of those Sikhs involved in the fucking separation file? No, probably not, because they fucking poisoned the well, making it look like it was a white nationalist thing rather than just an independence thing. Hey, we want our sovereignty. We want off of the tainted Canadian loonie, because right now the loonie is completely bullshit. It's been hijacked by private banks. And the finance minister of every government since Pierre Elliott Trudeau's onward, which starts with, what's that jackass with fucking, talks out of the side of his mouth, Jean Chrétien. Jean Chrétien was the first finance minister to fucking bypass the Bank of Canada Act, okay? Rocco Galati tried to sue the government 2011 through 2015 on this. It was called Comer versus Bank of Canada. Say hi to Lucy. Hi, Lucy. He tried to sue the government, and you know what the court said? The court said, no, this is a political issue. And guess what? That political issue has been buried ever fucking since. And I'm telling you, everything that Pat King's doing to expose Chris Barber and Tamara Litch, that's going to backfire on all these fucking lawyers, because he's going to expose them. You're all going to find out about it. everybody's going to come to the realization that, pardon me, that Tamara and Chris are bullshit. But then you're going to start following the string up to the lawyers, and that's where you're going to find out they're setting us up to become part of the U.S. Federal Reserve. That's what their big plan is. They're ignoring First Nations. First Nations is pissed. They haven't been consulted. Jeff Rath is supposed to be a lawyer for First Nations. What a fucking lying jackass. That purple. You ever see Jeff Rath? He looks like he's fucking one cheeseburger away from a fucking heart attack. Put the cheeseburger down, Jeff, you fat fucking prick. Fucking guy turns purple just giving a speech. He turns fucking purple. Motherfuckers. These fucking lawyers are fucking us. Right? Oh, if I'm so fucking wrong, I'm sure I'm going to have 4 fucking lawsuits sitting on my fucking porch when I get home tomorrow, right? Yeah, you fucking prick lawyers. This is the beauty of telling the truth. They can't fucking sue you for telling the truth. They can only sue you for slander, and this isn't fucking slander. These motherfuckers are political operatives. They're setting up the separation movement as a white nationalist thing, and you gotta go, why? Why? Why are they embedded with the Trump administration? Why are they getting involved with Vax Daddy von fucking Comeover, the guy that gave special permission to bypass all the fucking safety testing on the COVID-19 mRNA. mRNA was brand new. They wouldn't have ever got it to market if it wasn't for emergency use authorization. That's why fucking Trump is complicit. Don't tell me, oh, no, he didn't force it. He did. He fucking gave emergency use authorization, and then the Biden administration, that fucking goofball, the child sniffer in the mask, whoever that fucking guy was, Biden, they say it was. I don't think it was Biden, but whatever. Biden, they say it was. He took it the next level. Right? The U.S. military had to be fully fucking injected. You don't put any of that on Trump. Warp Speed was a fucking military operation. Wake up, people. You're all going to find out the fucking truth, but hopefully not before it's too fucking late. They want to send Alberta over to the United States of America. They say, oh, no, we don't want to do that. We want independence. Yeah, but you want a provisional currency. A provisional currency, meaning the U.S. dollar becomes a provisional currency for Alberta. Go fuck yourself. All the power is in who creates the currency. And if we aren't creating our own fucking currency, then we are merely vassals. So right now you have 2 choices. The way these fucking assholes in the APP are setting things up. Now keep in mind, I fully think we should be sovereign and separate. But those assholes in the APP, they're setting it up so it's going to fail. Because they're not going to have any of the support of any of the fucking immigrant population in the cities. And guess what? They outnumber everybody in the fucking country. They outnumber these country fucking bumpkins. Now listen, I got family from the country. Don't take it too personal. But you country bumpkins are listening to the wrong fucking assholes. You're listening to a guy from BC who was pushing fucking Brian Peckford. Brian Peckford obscured the Bill of Rights. He did it so successfully that everybody ignored the Bill of Rights in the Canadian context. But here in Alberta, the end of 2024, just over a year ago, the Alberta government went in and fucking watered down the Bill of Rights. They put a conditional clause on there so they could pull more of this fucking bullshit in the future. I tried to get Carpe involved to speak out against it. He wasn't one of the lawyers that showed up. I did have Sean. I had this guy. I had Sean Buckley. He showed up. His wife showed up. But we didn't have fucking Carpe. We didn't have Wilson. I tried to get all of those fucking guys involved, and none of them got involved. And you want to know why? Because I'm fucking onto these pricks. Go ahead, sue me, Keith, you piece of shit. You ought to be horsewhipped in the fucking street when this is over.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Phil. And I apologize. Thank you. Don't go away.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
And we're back. Donald Trump. He's in every story. Yeah, even Phil had to mention the man with the comb over. And if you want to talk about hubris, overconfidence, plenty on display right there. But what's of more concern from this man who wants to make us the 51st state for real and take over Greenland and topple the government in Cuba and serve as the acting president of Venezuela and take over Mexico and do exactly what we've been saying was coming. I've been saying it for quite a while now, to just turn the Western Hemisphere into America. It's the Gulf of Mexico, by the way. Just in case anyone is confused, it's the Gulf of Mexico. But a lot of people will think it's something else because Trump says so. I've been watching, I've seen over the last couple of nights, did you see the meeting that Trump was having with the oil executives? Because, he's looking out for the little guy in Venezuela, right? So in order to make sure everything goes really well down there, he met with all the executives, the top executives from the big U.S. oil companies, like Exxon and Chevron and so on. And then in the middle of this frickin' thing, he just decides that he's going to get up and go and look at his big, beautiful ballroom. It's freaking weird. He's not senile. It's Trump. Well, the late night talk show hosts have been making fun of this. They've been using it as material for stand-up comedy, basically. But when I watched it, I found it horrifying. I'm going to play this. I'll tell you why. It's so freaking scary. All right. Like, you can laugh at it, but really, this is just... It's horrifying.
I gotta look at this place.
He's in the middle of this meeting, and he just decides that he's just going to do this while everybody else is sitting around, like this huge gathering of oil executives. J.D. Vance, vice president on one side, Marco Rubio, secretary of state on the other, and Trump does this in the middle of the freaking meeting.
I gotta look at this place.
Everybody has to wait for him.
Wow. What a view. This is the door to the ballroom.
The door to the ballroom.
Unusual time to look. If the fake news would like to go back and take a look, you can, but you'll see a very big
foundation. It's moving. We're ahead of schedule in the ballroom and under budget. It's going to be, I don't think there'll be anything.
And look at the way, look. He gets up and walks out. Vance and Rubio are sitting there looking at each other. Is that normal? No. Have somebody do that in the middle of a meeting? Who does that? Someone with so much ego that they just don't care. And in fact, you might say they may be doing it on purpose in order to test people. And how do the people there respond? Nobody says anything. And when he sits down and he says something, they chuckle politely. He's an authoritarian. He's a tyrant. And they're all afraid of him. Every one of them in that room. And they all bent the knee at that moment. Every single one of them. They didn't say something like, excuse me, Mr. President, would you like to take a moment? Because it looks like you need some freaking help. Are you okay? No, they just accepted that as normal. And it's not normal. Nothing he's doing is normal. People are accepting it. Even the late night talk show hosts in the United States, even as they call him out and make fun of him, mock him, in a way that even they are accepting it. And I think even by turn, like, you're criticizing through humor to draw attention to it, but by treating it as humor, it's almost contributing to the normalization of, taking over every country in your hemisphere so that people are, chuckling and laughing, and maybe it just makes it more palatable. Or maybe, as Joseph said the other night, you just don't care. Why don't you care? Because you're being subjected to a constant intravenous mental drip online that feeds you propaganda. And you watch a president who just makes declarations and signs reality into existence with the stroke of a Sharpie, manipulating the way people think by controlling what they're allowed to say and question. Like, are you okay, sir? Who would dare say that? If you can't even say that, do you think they're pushing back when he's making crazy decisions? No. And do you think Trump is crazy? In a way, I think he's entirely psychotic, and yet I'm certain he knows exactly what he is doing, because this plan is elaborate. He has a whole team behind him. They've worked on it for a long time. That much is very clear. It's been unfolding for a long time. And now, because he's in there, he's in a rush. But that's horrifying. That's not the United States that I know. That's not, at least I thought I knew. Maybe it's just bubbled to the surface so we can see it now. But there's a president who has hubris. But his hubris may well be his undoing. Overconfidence, arrogance. That's what we're talking about. Hubris. And when you're that overconfident, where you think that you are basically invincible, you can do anything you want. You make mistakes. You go too far. These kinds of things, these kinds of people eventually fly too close to the sun like Icarus. Their wings melt and they come crashing down. It's just a matter of time. The problem is, in this case, there's so much damage being done between now and the fall. But it's clear that's what we're dealing with. And I don't really, I can see the humor in it, but it isn't really funny at all. That's horrifying. because that's an authoritarian who has brought the world to heel, or at least 1/3 of it. And nobody's questioning him. I mean, talk about yes men, butt kissers. Yes, sir, Mr. President, says J.D. Vance as he waits to take the throne on the day that Trump passes or is defeated at the polls, if there's even another election. And I never thought I'd hear myself say that. The man behind Operation Warp Speed. Are you connecting the dots? What's the playbook? You cause a problem, right? You blame it on somebody else, and then you offer the solution. And in this case, they demand that all these allied countries fall into line. COVID, lockdowns, masking, mandates, all the countries in lockstep, in compliance, in alignment. Oh, WEF, WHO, whatever. It's the United States. Trump. And then what came after. And then in all of these other countries, including Canada, yeah, our politicians fell into line in lockstep. Blameless? No, because we elect them to protect our rights, not to give them to us, and they didn't do that. Well-meaning? Maybe. Well-intentioned? Maybe. But like, what are you going to say, right? When you're Canada up against the United States and you're trying to protect your sovereignty, you want to protect your country's sovereignty. So if you're Pierre Poilievre or Mark Carney, and we heard Pierre Poilievre say, yeah, we think it's a good thing that Nicolas Maduro was kidnapped so the people there can live in freedom as the United States takes their oil. I can give him a bit of a pass. Maybe he believes it. Maybe he doesn't. Why would he say it if he doesn't believe it? Because if you come out and criticize that, you're going to bring Godzilla over the border and he's going to go and stomp on you. So when the Freedom Convoy was happening and you had all this rot at the center of it, as we've highlighted many times here, and Phil so eloquently tied it all together to illustrate it for you, at least in theory. What would you expect our politicians to do? And as I've said before, if there is U.S. influence, say at an ostrich farm, and some of that influence comes from the biggest purchaser of Alberta oil, a billionaire oil tycoon, media power broker, grocery store chain owner, but oil purchaser, influencer of the Canadian economy. What are you going to do? You're going to federal government going to come out and say, the United States is trying to take us over. No, you have to be very diplomatic about it, lest you get a real temper tantrum larger than the one that Donald Trump threw when Doug Ford ran an ad with clips of Ronald Reagan in context with a truthful, wholesome account of his position on tariffs, which is contradictory to what Donald Trump is doing. And it made him look bad because it was the truth. Conservative premier in Ontario, and the conservatives out west don't like him at all. Certain conservatives, got to wonder why. There's a big feud. Are you putting the dots together? Or you're the leader of Colombia, the president, and Trump starts making threatening remarks to you. So what do? Yeah, you eventually kind of soften your position and your nationalist rhetoric, and you fly on up to Washington and say what you got to say and do what you have to do to at least pretend to be a sovereign country or preserve what sovereignty you can by complying. And I guess it's a lot easier for someone like myself or like you during a mandate or a lockdown period to sit there and say, hell no, I won't comply. I refuse. Than it would be for a prime minister or even a politician, an MP. Because of what the consequences might be. Maybe it's not personal. Maybe it's because they're actually trying to protect us. Do I excuse them still? No. Because I want them to stand up. Even though it's a hard thing to do, maybe even an impossible thing to do. But my God, I do understand. Maybe it is an impossible situation and maybe you got to do what you got to do so Godzilla doesn't stomp all over the country immediately. As they gin up an excuse, a pretext to maybe even invade us. Again, I never thought I'd hear myself say that. God help us, I hope it doesn't come to that. And yet, the invasion plan is being drawn up for Greenland as we speak. And then what I'm talking about is on full display here is the head of NATO stands there and says, oh no, there's no problem here. I'm just playing the violin while the Titanic goes down. Everything we fought for in World War II is being destroyed. Nothing to worry about, though. It's all situation normal, all effed up. Next phase. And these people at the center of it, in Canada, they're even calling themselves patriots. Patriots. No, they're not. Not those people who are being misled. The people who are trying to break up our country calling themselves patriots. A lot of hubris there. Trump, full of hubris. Overconfidence. None of this is going to go down the way he thinks in the end. You think the people of Venezuela are just going to let the oil companies walk in there and take the oil? Not a chance. Exxon expressed concern about Trump's sort of plan or whatever, which is just to go in and do it. He says he might not let them have access because he didn't like their attitude or whatever. But look, history has shown that in a situation like this, and Trump probably won't even be there when all this really starts to go down. It's going to take at least a couple of years, I would think, for things to really start rocking and rolling down there. But if oil companies go down there, U.S. oil companies, you know what's going to happen? People are going to be pissed. You're going to have people pushing back because they want their sovereignty and their freedom. Maybe, a lot of people are cheering too. Oh, yay, Nicolas Maduro is gone. So now you have something maybe, maybe the same or worse, maybe better, who knows. But some people are not going to be happy about it because of the way it's been done. They're going to be subjected to sabotage at these oil refineries, oil wells, and they're going to refine it there. They'll ship it out and add the value at the refineries in Texas, on the Gulf Coast. They'll be attacked. Some of these workers that they bring in, Americans, to work in these facilities in Venezuela, some of them will pay for all of this with their lives in the years ahead, because they're going to be attacked in the darkness of night by people who call themselves freedom fighters. they're probably not really fighting for freedom either. They're going to be so fed up and disillusioned with the idea of freedom that they'll probably fight under some sort of a communist banner and be condemned for it by the United States, classified probably as terrorists. Oh, but Trump's even doing that on the home front, right? And I guess Biden kind of did it the other way around, too. The United States is in a lot of trouble, and they're in debt. That's why they're taking the oil. But this isn't going to go well in Venezuela in the long run. Alberta, not going to go the way you think it's going to go either, because Phil's quite right. This is a come to papa moment for Donald Trump. And the more disruption they can cause in Canada through all kinds of political activism, massive protests that are not just organic, but are helped along to become much bigger than they would have been on their own in an organic way. As they are ramped up and the snowball of each protest becomes bigger and turns into something akin to, I don't know, say like an ostrich farm protest that seems to be never ending, even though the birds are dead. Why would that be? Because it was never about the ostriches. Because it's all about the disruption, and you can see the foreign interference right up front and on its face. That's hubris. That's overconfidence too. Because some people are noticing, like us. And the people involved out there, the people who are really at the heart of that, yeah, you better be taking a pretty damn close look at what their motivations really are, especially at this point now that the birds are gone and this is all continuing. Follow the money. Money. Yeah. People who donate large sums of money in some cases and then feign ignorance and say, well, oops, I got duped. I'm not a very bright person, when clearly they must be, because they have a large sum of money in their back pocket that they can donate. And stupid people don't, well, sometimes, but most people who have money, who are self-made, are usually pretty slick, pretty sharp. That's the word I was looking for. Not slick. Although, hubris. That's when you kind of just do things right out in front. You don't give a damn, and you put it on full display and you say, take a look at that. What are you going to do about it? David A. I don't know. Maybe he'll become part of our Maverick family here in some way. A lot of promise there, but also a lot of ignorance. Doesn't know much about history. His knowledge of politics, very one-dimensional. His compassion for people, narrow, but heartfelt. David A. big donor to the ostrich farm. One of the most successful psychological warfare campaigns probably in world history. I mean that. It was never about birds. It wasn't about the birds then. It's not about the birds now. And it still goes on. And here I am still talking about it tonight. David A. says he's trying to save us. David A. substantial, large, claims to be a large donor to the ostrich farm. Full of hubris. Thinks he knows what's best for us. Donated money here. I've taken note, thinking about that. Substantial sums. $100 one night, $200 the next, $300 the next. What will happen tonight? As I focus attention on this again. I wonder. I actually do kind of like David a lot. But his hubris alarms me. His overconfidence, his arrogance, really. Someone who really doesn't know much about history, the history of his own country, and yet wants to destroy it and says, well, that's our right because we're just Gen Z. And you're not looking out for us. And you're the problem, like me and other people in my age bracket. So we're all to blame. No, that's a collectivist attitude, David. I don't judge people by the group they come from. I judge each individual by what they do, by their own actions, as I am judging your actions. And I'm sure you're judging mine. But I put you out there on your own and say, is what he doing, what he is doing good, or is it bad? Good, bad, what, neutral. I see what you're doing. You call yourself a patriot. That alone, right there. I've been very concerned about people calling themselves patriots. I'm a Canadian patriot. No, you're not. That's not true. Like so much of the other stuff that you say, you're either very confused, or you've said that you actually intentionally lie sometimes. So I know you do that. You came on the program here. You were talking about your involvement with the ostrich farm. You claim to have been duped. I'm not buying anything that you're saying. You've said that you quite often lie. You say that you're trying to save Canadians, to help Canada, that you're a Canadian patriot, while you are clearly ready to destroy it, to tear it down, not just to support separatism, but actually for the entire country to become the 51st state, while you're encouraging people to leave and bleed our country of its most valuable asset, it's people, skilled labor, carpenters, plumbers, welders, others who can help build this country up. You're trying to get them all to move to Texas because you're not a patriot. No, actually, I'll take that back. You are a patriot, an American patriot. See, people up here get real confused, and you hear that word over and over and over again, and they embrace it, and it normalizes the idea of being a patriot. But patriot, that's an American thing. That's what Americans call themselves. I'm a patriot. Goes back to the Revolutionary War. So what were people who were not Americans, who were involved on the other side of these conflicts with the United States, as they were seeking independence, and then after additional conflicts and splits. So what did the people who weren't Americans, didn't want to be Americans, what were they called? Loyalists. At the time, loyalists to the crown. And what did they do? They fled the United States, and they came up here to what would eventually become Canada. Because patriot, it's an American term. This binary made patriot synonymous with the American cause, rebellion against monarchy, republicanism, and this anti-British sentiment. So with all of that, the loyalists fled, came to areas around like New Brunswick, settled up here. This is pre-Confederation, right? So that's why they're British loyalists to the crown. Because there were these American colonists that remained loyal to the British crown. And this, during the Revolutionary War, the American Revolution, 1775 to 1783. And you had about maybe as many as 100,000 who fled or were expelled from the United States at the time and they came up here to British North America, hence the BNA Act. And they settled in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, primarily. And they played a major role in shaping early Canadian identity. They were among the first Canadians, right? And they had anti-Republican sentiments. And the British government gave them land and status as United Empire Loyalists, a term that you may have heard. Anyway, I just bring all this up because it is not really proper to call yourself a patriot if you are Canadian. It's more accurate to say that you are a loyalist. Now, today, things are considerably different, and you have the Quebec issue, and you have, now the Alberta separation issue. And you just have a lot of other people from other parts of the world and so on. So Canada's a more complex country. But some people still call themselves loyalists. I've thought a lot about it over really the last, especially year, and even before that, because I see all these Canadians who are confused calling themselves patriots. And I'm like, why do you keep calling yourself patriots? I'm a patriot. It's kind of like you can't come up with your own damn idea, so you call yourselves Maple MAGA. Well, that means that you want to be the 51st state, in case you haven't figured it out, where you're wearing your red hat, Maple MAGA on it. It doesn't mean that you're a conservative. It means that you're a damn 51st stater, essentially. Then you wonder why some people get so upset with you. I mean, I get it, because I know people don't get it. Or I see people, even with trucks and cars and flags, running around and saying, "We the people, we the people, we the people." That's an American thing, Declaration of Independence. That's not a Canadian thing. And actually, if you think about it, it's actually a very collectivist thing in many respects. We the people, like a group of people. Individualism's built in there to a degree, but even that. Anyway, Canada's not that. Never was. It isn't even really now. Mark Carney said it right in his letter. Peace, order, and good government. On the U.S. side, it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We just approach things differently. The United States, steeped in blood, war, conquest, that's how they expand their territory through their history. Their national anthem is about war, not Canada's. It's a warring nation down there. Up here, we take a different approach. They have, and I say this all the time, but they say it's peace through strength. I always turn it around and I say strength through peace. Both can be true at the same time, but I prefer strength through peace because that is cooperation, working with other nations. Everybody can win. Trade agreements, international trade, taking advantage of comparative advantage, greater efficiencies. Everybody can win. A rising tide raises all boats. Everybody grows. Everybody's better off, period. Everybody wins. It's everybody first. Not me, me, me. Everybody first is more about freedom than me, me, me. Me, me, me doesn't mean you're rejecting individualism. On the contrary. Me, me, me means me and F everybody else. Screw other people's rights even. We'll just round them up off the streets using a paramilitary operation and ship the people we don't like out of the country. Screw their due process. And you've been hearing it right here on the show. I don't care, is what some people say. Yeah, because they don't believe in democracy. They don't really believe in freedom. In fact, I'm certain they don't. They've given up on it mostly because they're not conservatives. They're communo-fascists, a.k.a. neo-populists. Not conservatives. And people sit there and say, you're a libtard. No, I'm not. Because socialists, who I do not really take much issue with until they go too far, become way too progressive, and they push things too far, I'm very much opposed to that, because then they become just like the other side and being very authoritarian and telling you how to raise your kids, and they take your freedom away. No, I'm not that. But I'm also not the other thing. And so, Mr. Alot, I don't want you to save me, because you're not saving anybody. You can have what you want. You can leave the country and you can go to Texas, and you have. Be happy. And your friends with your service to get people to go to Texas. It's a cool place. And it suits a lot of people, including some Canadians. And if people choose to go there, I'm all for it, man. Free. Go. Just tell the truth. Don't lie. Don't pretend you're a patriot, though. And tell Canadians you're going to save us. I guess it's partly because you're a Christian and you're on a mission. That's the thing about some people in religion, though. It's like your way or the highway, right? Because there's no separation of church and state in your world. That's why you only want certain kinds of immigrants, maybe. And the rest get loaded onto planes with no due process, no court appearance. Ship them out. Do you care? Is that freedom? I care. What about the people of Venezuela? Oh, it's a much better place to live down there, right? In Texas. Why? Actually, well, the economy will be booming soon. They're going to have more of that Venezuelan oil pouring in. Is that yours? Where'd that wealth come from? Where's it going to come from? Well, wherever it's coming from, it'll help pay off that $30 trillion debt, I suppose, and help you buy that home. Oh, but might just have to be behind a gate in a gated community, because there are problems down there too. No gates in my town. Not like that. We have trouble. We don't have gated communities in my community. Don't really need them. Thank God. Good change. Takes a lot of hubris to tell people how to live, to tell people that they need to be saved, when you don't even know the difference between a patriot and a loyalist. There's a difference. But both can exist side by side. You don't have to destroy one to get the other. Truth is, I guess I'm a Christian too, because David Alot, I don't just like you, I love you. And I want what's best for you. But I'm not going to tell you how to live. You do whatever you want to do. Be free. But can you please stop trying to destroy our country? Your country? Your home? You're a smart guy. You don't need to do it that way. I'm not a patriot, but I'm very patriotic because I'm a loyalist. Came up with some words today to echo peace, order, and good government is part of what I think might just be the beginning of a whole new Maverick movement. Strong, stable, sovereign. We are Mavericks. We are Canadian loyalists. Not like United Empire loyalists. We're here to honor the past, honor those who sacrificed, who came before us to give us what we have today, or at least what we had, our freedom, our country, our home. Loyal because as conservatives, or at least me, you do you, I want to fix the things that need fixing, keep the things that work and have worked, that have been built up over hundreds and even thousands of years to create our system and build better for the future. That's my Canada. And that's what I'm gonna get, man. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna build it up. It's all right here. Or you can go there. It's almost a free country here. Thank you for the donation again, David. I see that. I'm not done yet. We're almost to the end today. Something important to share with you. I'm going to take a little break and then come back, and I'm going to bring you some a farewell statement from Scott Adams, who cartoonist who passed away. We've been running some of his stuff here on the program, and I'm going to share that with you when we come back on the other side of this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Just one more moment. Almost there. A couple of things to share.
Brightleaf Innovations is excited to offer our newest investment opportunity. The Turn Easy Bed Storage Solution.
Turns with a touch, spins all the way around. Every little thing you need is easy to be found. No more clutter, no more mess on the floor. Just spin it, reach it, you don't search anymore. Turn Easy Bed, spin your world around. Storage made simple, the best you found. Shelves your way, keep the mess away. Charge it, store it, night or day. Custom shelves for your books or your tech. Cozy space for your treasures to protect. Built-in power when you need to recharge. Smart design that makes your bedroom feel large. Turn Easy Bed, spin your world around. Storage made simple, the best you found. Shelves your way, keep the mess away. Charge it, store it, night or day.
Designed and developed by Brightleaf Innovations. Proudly Canadian and patent pending in North America. Turn Easy Bed transforms how you live.
To learn more about this innovative new product idea and exciting investment opportunity, call 519-784-0222 or visit brightleafinnovations.com.
Okay. So, Scott Adams has passed away. Dilbert comic strip. Here. Let me bring it up over here. This one. As you know, we've run, he was doing a series of videos. And there he is. This is the CTV story about him, but I have a letter that he wrote to share with us. So I'm going to read that in a moment. Yeah, creator of the popular comic strip Dilbert has died. Diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer. You know, he went to the Oval Office, met with Trump, took advantage of the right to try rule law that Trump passed. So he was trying some experimental treatments. Yeah. The Dilbert comic strip. And when last we heard from him, he was grateful because his sketching hand was functional again. He was having some paralysis in parts of his body. But he has shared this on social media, or at least someone puts it up there for him, a final message. So let me just see if I can read this here. If you are reading this, things did not go well for me. I have a few things to say before I go. My body failed before my brain. I am of sound mind as I write this, January 1st, 2026. If you wonder about any of my choices for my estate or anything else, please know I am free of any coercion or inappropriate influence of any sort, I promise. Next, many of my Christian friends have asked me to find Jesus before I go. I'm not a believer, but I have to admit the risk-reward calculation for doing so looks attractive. So here I go. I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and I look forward to spending an eternity with him. The part about me not being a believer should be quickly resolved if I wake up in heaven. I won't need any more convincing than that. and I hope I am still qualified for entry. With your permission, I'd like to explain something about my life. For the first part of my life, I was focused on making myself a worthy husband and parent as a way to find meaning. That worked, but marriages don't always last forever. And mine eventually ended in a highly amicable way. I'm grateful for those years and for the people I came to call my family. Once the marriage unwound, I needed a new focus, a new meaning. And so I donated myself to the world, literally speaking the words out loud in my otherwise silent home. From that point on, I looked for ways I could add the most to people's lives one way or another. That marked the start of my evolution from Dilbert cartoonist to an author of what I hoped would be useful books. By then, I believed I had amassed enough life lessons that I could start passing them on. I continued making Dilbert comics, of course. As luck would have it, I'm a good writer. My first book in the useful genre was How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. That book turned out to be a huge success, often imitated and influencing a wide variety of people. I still hear every day how much that book changed lives. My plan to be useful was working. I followed up with my book, Win Bigly. That trained an army of citizens how to be more persuasive, which they correctly saw as a minor superpower. I know that book changed lives because I hear it often. You'll probably never know the impact the book had on the world, but I know, and it pleases me, while giving me a sense of meaning that is impossible to describe. My next book, Loser Think, I teach people how to think better, especially if they were displaying their thinking on social media. That one didn't put much of a dent in the universe, but I tried. Finally, my book, Reframe Your Brain, taught readers how to program their own thoughts to make their personal and professional lives better. I was surprised and delighted at how much positive impact the book is having. I also started podcasting a live show called Coffee with Scott Adams, dedicated to helping people think about the world, about their lives, in a more productive way. I didn't plan it this way, but it ended up helping lots of lonely people find a community that made them feel less lonely. Again, that had great meaning for me. I had an amazing life. I gave it everything I had. If you get any benefits from my work, I'm asking you to pay it forward as best you can. That is the legacy I want. Be useful. And please know I loved you all to the end. Scott Adams. A maverick, a misfit. He's not gone, he's just moving on. Everything that is always was. See you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern. On the flip side.
I walk this ground, I breathe this air, felt the sun burn gold into my hair. Laugh too loud, cry too deep, carry love and buried grief. Every heartbeat wrote my name in water, fire, dust and flame. ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The body falls, but the soul won't rust. Everything that is always was. Everything that was always will be. I am not gone, I am just moving on. Scattered like seeds on an endless sea. I'm still me in God's matrix of infinity. There is nothing, nothing but possibilities. Watch me break, watch me spill across the rivers, over the hills. Carbon and water, light and heat. A billion new hearts will feel my beat. The tree will wear my skin as bark. The wind will sing my laugh in the dark. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. I'm not ending, darling, I'm turning into us. Everything that is always was. Everything that was always will be. I am not gone, I am just moving on. Reborn in the roots of a cedar tree. I'm still me in God's matrix of infinity. There is nothing, nothing but possibilities. Was I ever here? Was any of this real? Did the light ever land on my face for real? Were these hands ever mine? This heart ever true? Then I remember the weight of loving you. The taste of salt from a tear I cried. The way the morning found me alive. I felt, I heard, I hoped, I tried. I think I was, and I will be again. What will I become? What will I be? Maybe rain that kisses the sea. Maybe a child's very first cry. Maybe the blue in somebody's sky. Something new, but always me. Because truth, because God has set me free. Everything that is always was. Everything that was always will be. I am not gone, I am just moving on. My thoughts still ripple, my love still runs through veins of strangers, through setting suns. I'm still me. Echoes in your memory, in God's matrix of infinity. There is nothing, nothing but possibilities. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. I'm not leaving, I'm becoming us.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.